we utilize a bonded warehouse. And where that's important is when your stuff comes into the United States, it has to clear customs.
Okay.
And if you don't have access to a bonded warehouse, you have to use whatever the airlines have.
Oh, you're using their warehouse.
You're using their warehouse, which you have to pay.
Well, I mean, airlines never lose baggage.
No.
I'm Ryan Gresham, and this is Gun Talk Nation. Gun Talk Nation is brought to you by Black Hills Ammunition, Loophole, First Person Defender, Ruger, Winchester Supreme Optics, Safari Specialty Importers, Colt, and Military Armament Corporation. And we're live. Sort of. Welcome in, Gun Talk Nation.
How's it going, Ryan?
Bradley Ian Johnson, Ian Bradley Johnson. He's the guy
There's
with
a lot of names.
Three names.
So there's actually 4 names.
Is it really?
Ian Bradley McClendon Johnson.
Jeez.
So Ian Bradley is hyphenated.
The fourth name keeps you from being a serial killer, I think is how that works.
Yes. The 4th name keeps me from being a serial killer.
Whew. All right. Welcome in, man. Good to see you again.
You should see what it's like for me at the DMV. They don't have a button for that anymore.
But no one mistakes your identity with some. There's not an Ian Bradley Johnson McClendon Jr. the third.
Nope.
Somewhere else.
I'm the only one.
Yeah. Jeez.
I'm the only one and only.
So, man, people are like, who in the hell is this guy? Well, we got to know each other because you worked at a gun store that I used to go to.
That's right.
And
the arms merchant.
But you're also, I describe you. You were the strange creature. You're a young man who is interested in old things.
100%.
Old guns.
100%.
Old authors.
I
old
think
everything.
The running joke was, when I started doing a little freelance writing here and there, which I started for you.
Yep.
Y'all were the first people to ever publish an article from me.
It's our fault.
It's like people would be like, "Oh, do you get like sponsored to do stuff?" And I'd be like, "The stuff I'm interested in writing about, everyone who made it has been dead for 100 years. I don't think anyone's."
We're talking about walnut here.
I've taken more game with iron sights than I have scopes.
Really?
Yes.
Jeez.
I actually tallied it up the other day.
Oh my gosh. So we started off because we were talking about my grandfather. Obviously, he was a Miller Lite All-Star.
Yeah.
Tastes great, less filling commercials. And I said, yeah, I remember being a kid, and he would have stacks and cases of Miller Lite in like the garage.
A fine American Pilsner.
That's right.
A fine American Pilsner. And look, nothing, I was telling you about this before the podcast, there is no greater joy in life than when you're at some hipster martini bar and they can't wait to tell you about their new cocktail. That's can't. Right. It's like he woke up knowing he got to this moment and I get to kill it for him.
These cherries were
because
fresh
he's going to be like, these cherries were fresh frozen. We use these almonds from Lebanon in the mountains that we hand pick ourselves. And there's this artisanal cheese board that accompanies it. And I get to look at him and go, 1 Miller Lite, please.
You just crush his soul.
Just crush his soul. It brings me joy. Even if I walked in wanting a martini, if you're going to act like that, yeah, I'm getting a Miller Lite.
Yeah, just to spite you. A fine American Pilsner.
And what's great is when I get to watch my German friends, and they love to, trash on American beer and stuff like that. And they're like, well, it's not this and it's not this. And, I'm like, hey, man, I don't know what to tell you because some of the greatest moments in my life have happened with a Miller Lite. And,
Or a pony. Or a pony.
I can kill some ponies at brunch. You give me some ponies, some raw oysters. I'm having a good day.
Yeah, I think everybody could agree.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So we're going to go all over the place here. We're going to talk about old guns. We're going to talk about, we can make fun of whatever. But I mean, you are a guy who's loves guns, loves hunting.
Yes.
You've gotten seriously into international hunting, safaris and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that brought you to your new gig or your new gig brought you to that.
It actually started back at the Arms Merchant.
Okay.
So when I graduated school, I took a hiatus from work.
Hiatus is a fancy way of saying I was unemployed.
Yes.
Yeah.
I broke the lease on my apartment.
Yep.
I in hindsight, should have broken up with the girl I was dating. But,
Well,
basically put life on hold, sold everything I had, and went to Africa by myself with no plan.
Really?
Because I grew up reading Grits and, Peter Capstick and Robert Rourke and Hemingway and all these great writers. And another one that not a lot of people know about is Finn Agard.
Yep.
Finn Agard was one of the coolest outdoor writers.
Celis has some stuff too.
That's right. That's right. And, like Harry Manners and all of those guys.
So you went to Africa with no plan?
I went to Africa with no plan. I booked a hunt.
You
not
flew
knowing
to
what to
Johannesburg?
expect. I flew into Namibia.
Oh, okay.
Into Windhoek.
Yep.
Ended up having what in hindsight was not that great of a hunt. I mean, the PH wanted to drink and watch rugby instead of hunt. And, he wanted to, shoot stuff from the truck. And that wasn't really my vibe. But look, at the end of the day, I had the adventure of a lifetime. I was hooked.
Yeah.
I was almost arranged to be married when I was there to like the farmer's daughter. And
you're like,
stuff
I can get on board with this. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, at the time I had a girlfriend. And I was like, no, I have a girlfriend. And then she ends up breaking up with me like a month after I get home.
Course.
And, call the German farmer's daughter up and she's already found someone else. So
damn it.
No, not damn it, because I now have a lovely wife.
You're married, happily married. You outkicked your coverage.
I'm so far out of my league, Ryan, that when people see a picture of Mallory, they go, "Wow, good for you," and I'm like, "What's that supposed to mean?"
I mean, thank you, but I'm also insulted.
Thank you, but this is. Anyways, she's lovely.
She's lovely.
But that trip basically sparked a passion where every moment from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed is to put me back in Africa as often as possible.
And you've been a few times now.
I'll be on my 5th trip this year.
Really?
Yep.
Jeez.
And I did Australia last year.
Yeah.
For Asiatic buffalo.
So why do everybody says this. They're like, man, once you go to Africa, it gets in your blood. Da, da, da. How would you describe it to a guy who likes hunting, who's like, I don't understand why I'd go all the way over there for that?
Well, I'll describe it to you like this, Ryan. I know you like to wing shoot. It's part of the passion we share. He's an amazing shot, by the way. He's super humble, but he's one of the best wing shots I've ever met.
Oh, thanks. It's because I shoot wrong-handed. Well, it's because I do use the
You were able to see the mallards coming from a different direction.
I do use the correct eye.
Yeah.
A lot of people they put it on their right shoulder when they're little and they don't realize they're left eye dominant, and that's a problem. Yeah.
That's right. So I would describe it like this. Do you know that moment when your dog goes on point and you're walking up to a wild covey and nothing in life matters? You're not worried about bills, your marriage, your job, any stress you have in life. None of it matters.
No, you're 100% focused.
And you're 100% focused. All the woods go quiet. And then all of a sudden, this flush of bobwhite comes up in front of you, or a woodcock. And you don't remember shouldering the gun. You don't remember the shot going off. Before you know it.
You don't even hear the shot.
No. Before you know it, you see feathers and something falling to the ground, and you're giving your dog the signal to go get it. I would say when you go to Africa for the first time, the whole trip is like that.
Really?
So you're chasing this, it's almost like you're so out of your element. You're going to smell things you've never smelled. You're going to taste things you've never tasted. You're going to see and hear things you've never done. Your senses are going to go into overload in a way to where you kind of connect yourself back to this primordial dance with nature and death. And
that's got to be part of it, right? Because you're kind of like, everywhere I step, I mean, my dad said everything there can bite you, sting you, cut you.
Yes.
And it's perhaps, is that the high from like, you're a little bit, not on edge like I'm freaking out, but you're aware, you're alert.
Yes, you're very aware, you're alert, but I really don't know how to describe it other than I really encourage everyone to go see it for themselves.
And bring a gun that just has iron sights.
Well, no, that's not for everyone. That's not for everyone. I thoroughly enjoy getting close. I like spotting and stalking. I'm a terrible long-range shooter. I like a peep sight, with an open aperture. I can leave both eyes open, get within 100 yards,
Okay.
throw it to my shoulder, and
So
smack.
most people will say, what's the longest shot you've ever taken on game with iron sights? I'll say it this way. What's the closest shot that you've ever taken on game with iron sights?
4 yards.
4 yards?
4 yards.
What was it?
It was a running warthog that came out of the bush. But the coolest was I shot.
You can't do a 4-yard shot with a 4 to 16 power scope, by the way.
You can't. But the one I'm the most proud of, that my wife was standing right next to me, and it was actually on her honeymoon. Because, like, you know, you've met Mallory, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's not an outdoorsy person.
She's fancy.
She's fancy. But, you know, there's all sorts of trade-offs in life, right, Ryan?
Yeah.
And that's the trade-off I took. We had the big New Orleans wedding.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we had a second line, and my mother-in-law invited all sorts of people. But the trade-off was I got to pick the honeymoon.
Yeah.
So we went on safari.
Nice.
And Mallory had never been hunting before besides ducks.
But she enjoyed it, right?
She loved it. She absolutely loved it. And she loved being able to share it with me. Because she said she saw how much excitement I got out of it, and that's what made her happy.
Yeah.
Which is why you marry a woman like that.
That's awesome.
But we were stalking Lechway, and I was on the sticks for 30 minutes waiting on this Lechway to stand up. And he finally stood up, and you can see it on camera. Boom. I shot him right on the shoulder. He jumps like he's hit, and he starts running towards me. Now, the first shot was at about 110 yards.
Yeah.
Okay. Starts running towards me. I rack the bolt. I'm shooting a B model Mauser from 1914 in 7x57 with a peep sight.
Very cool.
That wasn't a sporterized gun. It was made like that from the factory, and it was a PH gun on Kodiak Island for 60 years.
No kidding.
Yeah, I bought it from a family up there.
Interesting.
So I rack the bolt. I get off the sticks, and he gets to the 60-yard mark, and he puts the brakes on, turns completely broadside, and goes to jump over a bush. And I swing like he's a pheasant, and I put another one through both shoulders. Pump, thump, falls dead.
No kidding. That's amazing.
You can't do that with, you know, high-powered scope.
Right. No.
Well, you can. You just have to be a lot better than I am.
Yeah, it's just trickier. Yeah, running it that way. So you're here because we were talking about all of this stuff, and now what you guys do with, I'd call it importing and exporting, but I don't want to give away anything. So after the break, you've got some nightmare stories that you're going to share with this listening audience.
Yes.
Winchester Supreme Optics, quality and innovation in optics. Winchester has a rich heritage dating back over a century, an American brand that has become synonymous with excellence, reliability, and innovation. They've expanded with their optics line, binoculars, rangefinders, rifle scopes, spotting scopes, and even thermal rifle scopes. You can learn more at winchesteroptics.com. That's winchesteroptics.com. Why do serious hunters use Safari Specialty Importers? Because getting your trophies home is all they do. It's white glove service from beginning to end. They know how to navigate the customs office and even have their own bonded warehouse to keep your trophies in while they clear customs. Most important to me is that they are hunters who understand the value of these once-in-a-lifetime trophies. Learn more at safarispecialtyimporters.com. Engineered for precision, performance, and versatility, the Colt Optics Ready 1911 competition pistols are the perfect choice for competitive shooters looking to gain an edge. We're talking about 1911s in either 9mm or 45, and they're cut for optics. I mean, that's like cheating. You get a red dot on top of a Colt 1911. They're versatile. They're great with an optics plate system. Seamless experience for those who want to take their shooting game to the next level. You can learn more over at Colt.com. Let me tell you about some of my favorite guns from Military Armament Corporation, or MAC, as many know them. The MAC 9 DS is a double-stack 1911, and in fact, they have an entire line of these double-stack 1911s. Surprisingly affordable. The MAC 5 and MAC 5K are a roller-delayed blowback 9mm pistol inspired by a firearms icon, and they take MP5 mags, if you know what I mean. See more at millarmamentcorp.com. So one of the things people, if we're talking about going abroad to hunt, it's, can I bring the meat back? People will say that. How do I get the hides back and the trophies back? How does that all work? Because if you've never done it, you don't know how it works. But I'll tell you this, the very first safari my dad ever went on was probably in about 1988. He went to Zimbabwe.
I have the zebra in my house for the safari, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he shot 7 animals, and 18 months later, he got 1 back.
Yeah.
And the other 6 were lost forever. He never got them back. They just vanished between Africa and here.
I could be misquoting, but I think the cool story about that hunt was he brought like a 338 Win Mag with a 1-5 on it, right?
He brought a 338 Win Mag.
Okay, I got that
and
right.
a 416 Remington, and neither of them showed up. I think they showed up on like the last day or the second to last day. So he shot everything with the PHs 375 H&H.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he told me when he got back, he actually drew a Desert Bighorn tag.
Correct.
And the only zeroed rifle he had was the 338 with the 1-5. Correct. And that's what he went and shot his sheep with.
With a 1-5. Yes. It works.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. Sidebar, if you would like to hate Tom Gresham a little bit more, we lived in Arizona for 1 year.
And he drew a Desert Bighorn tag. That's incredible.
1 year we lived in Arizona.
That's incredible.
Everyone together can say, "You son of a bitch."
Well,
it's pretty awesome though.
I could swap stories about your dad all day, but so I'm over at Safari Specialty Importers.
Yeah.
And what we specialize in is if an American goes overseas and hunts, we facilitate bringing their trophy, their taxidermy
Make
home.
sure it gets here.
We make sure that it gets here. And if foreigners come hunt in America, we can then export their American trophies to other places. Like I'm doing a alligator right now that was shot in Florida, exporting it to Mexico. I've got some friends in Switzerland and France that went on a whitetail hunt in Texas. I'm sending those over.
Isn't it kind of funny? It's like that's perhaps like exotic for them, right?
Well, what's hilarious is I want to shoot a roebuck so badly, and they're like, "Why would you spend money on a plane ticket to fly all the way to Europe to shoot a roebuck?"
It's like
they can't wrap their head around it. And I'm like, I mean, it's probably like shooting a whitetail for us, right?
Right. Yeah. They're like, okay, fine, whatever.
They're like, sure, you can come, but man, that's a lot of money to spend for a roebuck. And I'm like, the grass is always greener.
Yeah.
What can I say? But so essentially what we do is we ensure that a client's trophies get where they're supposed to go. And
I'm sure you have stories of people.
Yes. So actually,
horror stories, right? That's what I kind of led
my
with.
boss, Wyatt Fettner, who is the owner of this company, and he went on safari in 2018 with his dad, and they went to Namibia.
Mm-hmm.
He shot an ostrich. The company they used to bring his trophies back lost his ostrich for 6 months when it already hit American shores.
Oh, geez. It was already here?
Yes. So he did some calling around, found Safari Specialty Importers, and they found it within 24 hours and got it to him.
I guess that's just a case of knowing how to
Sitting in a
navigate.
Yes, it's a case of
importing.
navigation. And one of the things we pride ourselves on, Ryan, is, all we do is trophy imports. Okay. A lot of the, not necessarily problems with our competition, but can be a headache for hunters is, trophy imports might be less than 1% of what they do annually. So they're focusing on soft goods from China, food from Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
wine from Europe, car parts, everything under the sun. If you call a secretary at that building and ask where your CITES permit is, you might not get someone who knows what you're talking about. And it's no fault to them. It's simply not what they handle day to day.
Because there's specific things about bringing in animals,
Yes,
I'm sure.
there are specific
it's a bigger
things.
deal than bringing in Merlot.
Correct.
Yeah.
So long story short, Wyatt was so impressed with the process that he got to know the founder of the company, Robert, and ended up purchasing the company from Robert in 2019 whenever Robert was ready to retire.
Gotcha.
And then he brought me on earlier this year.
Awesome. So, I mean, how do people? What's the process like?
So the process is like this. I'm going to use Africa as an example, just because that's, let's be honest, that's where the vast majority of Americans go hunting overseas, specifically South Africa.
Yeah.
So the process is like this. You'll go on your hunt, and then you'll get one of three outcomes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
People either have no interest in their trophies, which you'd be surprised at how many people do that.
That's crazy.
They
just shoot it and leave it.
Two of the guys I quail hunt with have been 4 times, and they've never brought a trophy back.
That's great. Man.
That's just, hey, you like what you like. But
yeah.
So some people do that, and then the people that need me do one of two things. They either get what's called dit pack, where the skulls are cleaned and the hides are processed to a point where it can ship, and they choose to have their taxidermist here in the U.S. handle it.
Right.
Or they get completed taxidermy done overseas.
And then you have to ship the taxidermy
in. Yes, there's pros and cons to both. It's very situational specific. I actually have that talk with people probably twice a day.
Yeah.
Over should I dit pack it or should I do this? And it's really about what's important to you.
I mean, it's as far as durability goes, it's fine either way?
It's fine either way. But like if you're a guy like me, I prefer skull mounts. So I'm just going to pay to have them bleached and mounted on a wood plaque in Africa and have them sent over, or as flat skins, because I can get that done sort of anywhere. But I totally get the relationship some people have with their taxidermists where they're like, well, he's my guy and he mounts everything. That's perfectly fine.
Sure.
They have to use me either way. So what that requires is it requires a customs clearing. And we utilize a bonded warehouse. And where that's important is when your stuff comes into the United States, it has to clear customs.
Okay.
And if you don't have access to a bonded warehouse, you have to use whatever the airlines have.
Oh, you're using their warehouse.
You're using their warehouse, which you have to pay.
Well, I mean, airlines never lose baggage.
No.
They're perfect.
And you have to use a storage fee that's usually per kilo per day.
Oh, no kidding.
Before COVID, customs was running a week. Now, especially with the current strain the immigration department's over right now and customs is seeing right now, it can be a week, it can be 40 days.
Oh, wow.
It's really anyone's roll of the dice, and it cannot move until customs physically clears it. So how it generally works is we don't handle any of that until the trophies are ready to leave the home country. But I can't stress this enough. We try to get all the paperwork done ahead of time. So if you're going on a hunt, if you plan on using us or any company like ours, get all your paperwork done ahead of time.
Don't call us after the hunt.
Correct.
You land back in Atlanta or something. Yeah.
Not that that's a problem. That does happen.
You can do it, but it's better.
That does happen, but these permits take time. Export permits take time. And, the documentation, while it's not a lot, it's still something you have to print out and do. And so having all your ducks in a row ahead of time really helps. But going back to the bonded warehouse real quick. So because we have access to a bonded warehouse, we don't charge clients any storage fees.
Oh, okay.
So we're very proud of that. No matter if it sits there for a week or for 2 months, you're going to pay us the same amount of money.
Okay. Because it's a flat fee, is that right?
It's a flat fee. We charge $975 per shipment, per hunter. Doesn't matter if you're bringing back 1 trophy or 30.
Wow. Okay.
And you obviously have to cover the shipping on top of that, which we try to get as low as possible.
Yeah, you guys probably know how to navigate that a bit.
Yes. And we ensure that it gets delivered. But the one thing I'm really proud about is the communication, right? So that's something that Wyatt and I have both experienced as clients before we did this, was communication with taxidermists and importers and exporters and freight forwarders. And it's this whole mess. I want to call one guy. I want him to tell me where my stuff is. I want him to tell me how much, and I want to pay one person one time in America.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to worry about wiring money other places. I had a client this morning who's choosing to get all of his taxidermy done in South Africa. We're paying his taxidermy bill on his behalf.
Oh, really?
So he doesn't have to worry about going down to his bank to do an international wire. We're just adding it to his bill.
That's awesome.
We don't charge anything for that.
People want stuff to be easy because
They
there's
want
so
easy
much.
and they want convenience. But more importantly, they want to be able to get to the bottom of it if it's a problem.
Yeah.
So, obviously I'm not always available. I do sleep sometimes, but what my team and I boast is, if you call us, every single client's going to have our direct contact info. We will get back to you within 28 to 48 hours.
Yeah.
Someone from our team will. And I think that's very valuable to a lot of people, is to have that reassurance of, you talk to anyone who's had trophies shipped from overseas, everyone's got horror stories. Everyone's had stuff go missing, or, it was in this weird limbo for 6 months where I didn't know where it was and I couldn't get an answer out of anyone.
I mean, just to put a point on it, there are trophies that are, for most of us, these are once in a lifetime things.
Correct.
Most people,
Correct.
Bradley, don't go to Africa multiple times a year. And if it could be as simple as an impala or a kudu,
but that's that person's once in a lifetime.
It could be a giraffe. It could be a Cape buffalo. It could be like, this is bucket list stuff, and then it just goes missing.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell?
Yeah. And look, technically, under the eyes of the law, you could do what we do yourself and not have to pay us $9.75.
Mm-hmm.
You could learn the documentation and you could self-import, which is perfectly fine. But if you get the paperwork wrong, Customs is going to seize your stuff and burn it. Or they're going to refuse it and they're going to send it back. Yes, that's what they do whenever they destroy stuff.
Can you imagine?
They're either going to send it back to the country it came from, which you're going to have to foot the bill for, or they're going to destroy it. I actually have a friend that tried to do it himself, and he was real... Now, I don't want to use the word lazy, but he didn't think it was that big of a deal, and his red stag from Scotland got seized and destroyed.
Oh, gosh. Oh, that hurts.
So at the end of the day, yes, you're paying us $975, but you're paying us for the convenience of making sure it's all done correctly.
Yeah. And I mean, in the scope of, depending on what you're doing, the scope of that, is like actually not that much.
You're still going to have to pay for the shipping either way.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about going to Africa or somewhere else.
Correct.
All right, let's do this. Let's take a quick break. I want to hear stories about different countries, different animals, just kind of like pro tips for people and that kind of thing.
Awesome.
You've probably heard about the Ruger RXM pistol. It's the result of a collaboration between Ruger and Magpul. American-made handgun, stands out with a variety of upgraded features, including direct mount optic cut slide. So you can put an RMR, Delta Point Pro, RMSC cuts with co-witness height sights. It also has their fire control insert. It's a removable stainless steel insert. That's the serialized part of the gun, which enables you to customize using Magpul enhanced grip handgun grips. And so they have different colors, different sizes. You can really customize it. It's Gen 3 compatible, so it works with magazines that you may already own. And we've tested it. We shot it a lot, and we like it. You can learn more about the Ruger RXM over at Ruger.com. Elevate your precision with the Leupold Mark IV HD rifle scope, featuring a professional-grade optical system for pinpoint clarity and zero-lock dials for precise, reliable adjustments. This lightweight yet rugged, reliable rifle scope is the ultimate companion for any shooter. And they have it in a variety of configurations, a 1:4, like variable low-power optic, all the way up to an 8 to 32 power if you want to reach out and hit stuff at really long distances. The Leupold Mark IV HD, we've been using it. We've been liking it. It's got a lot of nice features to it. It's high quality. It's something that you can depend on. You can learn more over at Leupold.com. Hey, Gun Talk listeners, we have something special that you need to know about. When you go to Brownells and you enter Gun Talk 10 at checkout, you'll get 10% off any order of $150 or more. Brownells, you know what they've got. They've got optics, they've got ammo, they've got guns, they've got all kinds of stuff. Enter Gun Talk 10 for 10% off any order of $150 or more. And Brownells is hooking you guys up. Go check them out. Black Hills Honey Badger ammo is a solid copper, non-deforming, non-fragmenting projectile with wide, sharp flutes, ballistic broadheads that cut through barriers that cause hollow points to fail, at least sometimes. An overall increase in depth and width of wound cavities. In that moment when you need the best to defend your family's life or your own, you'll appreciate a certain quality the Honey Badger possesses for the least complicated reason in the world. Well, it works. So, Ian, I know you've been to various countries and you work with all these guys who travel all around. I guess I got a lot of questions. I'm not sure where to start, but are there countries or perhaps species that are problems, or maybe even a no-go for us guys
So if
in
you
the
have
US?
a CITES animal, and CITES has various classifications, and it really depends on where it is and what it is. But like an elephant, for example, right? We can import an elephant, but we have to apply for what's called a CITES permit. That's perfectly fine. We get it directly from Fish and Wildlife. They want to see conservation studies. They want to see the proper paperwork. Basically, what CITES is doing is they're trying to ensure whatever animal was sport hunted was done in the most conservationally minded way, so to say. And we apply for that. One pro tip I will give, which I tell a lot of people about this, right? Listen, I love saving a buck as much as everyone.
Yeah.
Right.
We don't want to waste money, but.
Right. But this ends up happening a lot. People like to go hunting on safari in groups. Okay. You get a group of buddies together, right? You all go. Well, some point during the conversation, a lot of times, someone at some point in the safari will say, well, let's all say Bob shot it. That way we only have to pay for one customs clearing and not 4 customs clearings, and we'll all just split the $975 in the shipping. Here's where that comes into a problem. In theory, that sounds great. In reality, you're violating the Lacey Act.
And which means you could lose all of your hunting.
Yes, and Fish and Wildlife actively searches.
Yeah.
So everyone loves to post on social media.
The social media is game wardens' biggest tool these days because
that's right.
They cannot resist it. I mean, you talk to any game warden,
they can't resist it,
and they're like, "Oh, dude," and they
can't
have.
resist
This is not just
the days of the quiet poacher are gone.
No, and they're very sophisticated. I mean, it's not just like, oh, that guy's holding a deer up and it's March.
No, they can tell from the picture where it was shot.
Correct.
Yeah.
Like they
can look at the grass. There's all sorts of stuff.
There's the background, all that stuff. Yeah.
My point is that in theory, while that sounds great and all, you really want to avoid doing that because it is a felony.
Just do it the right way.
Yeah, just do it the right way. It's $975. So what I like to say is every single adult on the trip, even your wife, if she shoots something, should have their own customs clearing.
Really?
If you want to be above board, everyone that hunted should have their own customs clearing. And that's
don't catch a felony over your wife's Impala. I'm just saying.
Exactly. No one wants to catch a felony because your wife wanted to shoot a Blesbok.
Right, exactly. She got a warthog.
You think she's mad at you now, catch a felony, and she's going to be real mad.
You also lose all your guns, by the way. So there's that.
And your hunting rights.
And your hunting rights.
So good luck with the whole, I'll just bow hunt.
Yeah, not going to work, buddy.
No, it's not going to work.
Are there any countries that are like tougher than others as far as dealing with
just
it?
Logistically, yes and no. Like Cameroon, for example, right? All their government paperwork is in West African French.
Oh, interesting.
So it's a lot of deciphering, translation, speaking to people that don't speak English, stuff like that. But that's, at the end of the day, that's why someone pays us, because we get it all done and we make sure it's good to go. So
what about birds? Do people import birds?
Birds is an interesting one. So yes. So I actually have a buddy who's a waterfowl collector. And he brings in birds from all over the world. But Argentina, you can't bring any birds back from.
Isn't that crazy?
There's a law that's been on the books in Argentina for like 100 years where you can't export birds. And it comes from the days of market hunting.
Oh, really?
Because people were going down to the Pampas to shoot a ton of ducks and selling them to the markets. I guess elsewhere outside of Argentina. And so you can't bring birds back. You can bring your red deer, you can bring your buffalo, you can bring your wild boar, your fallow, your black buck. Cannot bring a duck.
Or a perdiz or anything like that.
Or a dove, or a charada.
Yeah.
Jeez. But it's one of these things where that's another reason why we like you to have all your ducks in a row ahead of time.
So to speak.
Is, yes. Give us a call. Let us know when you book your hunt. We'll get the paperwork in order. Okay? You tell us what you plan on doing. If you don't know what you plan on doing, we'll have a conversation.
Yeah.
And that way, when your trophy's done or dip packed or whenever it's ready to go to the next step, I'm able to press go and I'm not chasing people down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because listen, life gets busy.
Yeah.
I get it. You got the kids' soccer practice, you got gymnastics, you got PTA, you got, the church, you've got your job, you've got Boy Scouts, whatever it is. People are busy.
Yeah.
And no one wants to sit down and fill out a bunch of paperwork, but you got to do it.
And some of us, me, are paperwork averse. Like my brain
insanely
locks up,
paperwork
goes into
averse.
vapor lock when I hear, oh God, fill this out in triplicate.
You would be probably not surprised at the amount of assistance I get CC'd on emails going, they've got the auto sign.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Jeez. What are you seeing these days as far as, is there a popular destination or species that people are kind of getting into
So
right now?
Africa is still the most popular, just because, I think it's been romanticized about a lot. But I got to tell you, man, Australia is something a lot of people are sleeping on.
I got a buddy that I was just telling you, just down there right now.
Shameless plug for a second to Big Country Safaris, Alex Jaggers.
Yeah.
I had been trying to hunt with him for 6 years, and we finally made it happen. It was like one thing after another. I was either I was moving halfway across the country, or it was COVID, or it was just never a good time to go, right? And I finally went, and I can say it's the most wild place I've ever been in my life.
Really?
I was hunting in a valley that Alex and I and our crew were probably the first white men to be there.
No kidding.
Not the concession itself. People have hunted the concession in the past, but the particular valley we were at was so remote. One of the Aborigines was like, yeah, y'all are probably the first ones to go there.
Like ever? Like, yeah, ever.
Possibly.
Did you bring in a gun to Australia?
I did. I brought 2.
So, okay, because I was...
And it was an interesting process to bring your guns to Australia. So I brought 2 guns. I brought a late 40s Holland & Holland 375 bolt action, and built on a Mauser 98. And then I brought what is my favorite modern off-the-shelf bolt rifle, if I'm going to use a scope, which is my Steyr CL2 in 9.3x62.
Okay.
I got a temporary license. In fact, I should have had it because it's been in my wallet forever, and I finally took it out. I should have thought about it to bring it. But they literally sent me a gun owner's license that was valid for 10 days.
Oh, wow.
From the Northern Territory Police. One of the reasons I like to go with Alex is a big reason he gets all his paperwork done ahead of time.
I mean, and then the little bit of traveling with guns internationally that I've done, you need help. You need to make sure that the outfitter helps you.
That's right.
or somebody along the way.
And that's why
I mean, when I was flying back from Argentina, we flew into Buenos Aires, and we meet this lady who's our handler, and I swear to you, we walked for 2 hours around that airport. Okay, now we need to go here. Okay, now bring your guns, and we're going to walk over here. Now bring your guns over here. And getting all stamped. And I'm like, 1, I wouldn't have been able to find my way around this. But 2, she's having all these conversations, and it's like, there's no way I would have been able to do this. And whatever we paid her, I don't know. It wasn't a lot. $300.
Yeah, but that's why you go with good people. So long story short, we go to Australia. We have an amazing hunt. Probably one of my most favorite hunts in my entire life. I shot 2 buffalo, 1 with each rifle.
Cool.
And we're flying back, and our connection in Sydney gets delayed to the point we miss it. We miss our flight leaving Australia.
When you said a 10-day permit, it made me think, you better not be there 11 days.
So it's 11:30 at night, and our permit expires at midnight. So we just walk to the Border Force office, which is their version of customs.
Yeah.
And we're like, hey, guys, what do you want to do here? Yeah. And the guy was very nice, super nice. I will say, Australia, the people are lovely.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool, calm, and collected. He was like, yeah, not your fault. Obviously, the airlines. He called the Qantas lady from the desk.
Really?
To come to the Border Force office. And he said, you're going to get a hotel room for these gentlemen tonight. Oh. You're gonna pay for 2 meals. You're going to give them a voucher right now for 2 meals.
The customs guy.
You're going to get them a taxi. And he looked at us and he was like, guys, please don't leave your rooms with your guns.
You can take them with you, but don't leave the room.
Take them with you.
Wow.
I don't want to deal with them here. Just deal with it. And then he was like, they got it all sorted.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they know what happened.
Yeah, and they were talking
it was
to
a
you, and they're
matter
going,
of paperwork.
They're just Americans
and
hunting.
We had to go to 2 different airports on the way home. And every time we'd go to the Border Force office and they'd already been called ahead, and it was cool.
Yeah.
It was cool. But that's why you deal with someone like Alex, because Alex makes sure all your paperwork's done ahead of time should you want to bring your firearm. Not only that, he's one of the hardest working PHs that I've ever been with.
Well, you need that. And that's a tough one, which maybe that we'll have to save this for another show. But thinking about going with outfitters and different PHs, and there are horror stories there. There's how do you vet it?
But I will say,
want those guys that are going to work.
My skulls, so I just got skull mounts in my Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
I had them at my door in probably 4 months.
Really?
At my door.
Did you do the taxidermy in Australia?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It was insanely fast.
That is fast. You can't get a whitetail done in 4 months in Louisiana.
No. Now, keep in mind, all I had was a bleached skull. So it's not like I had to wait on a shoulder mount and stuff like that. Yeah. But just the logistics of it being on the ground to being in my backyard where they're currently getting weathered right now, because I want them to look, all weathered and stuff like that. I'm letting them get rained on and get some sunlight.
Just don't
for
let
a
the
little
squirrels
bit.
chew on them.
I hung a whitetail.
I had a whitetail that
in the tree in my yard.
9-point, but it was like
I had the same thing. I had this little basket rack 8-point that I shot on a dog drive, and I had the skull cap, and I wanted it to get weathered. Mm-hmm. So I thought, I put it in the crook of this tree and leave it in my backyard where my wife doesn't see it. It'll be fine. And 6 months later, I go look at it. Half of it's been eaten by squirrels.
Yep. Freaking squirrels.
Luckily, they haven't touched the buffalo skulls. So
yeah, keep an eye on
pro tip:
that.
you want to age your buffalo skulls in your yard, you can do it without the fear of squirrels.
Apparently, they don't like the buffalo.
They don't like the buffalo. But seriously, an underrated hunt.
Yeah,
one of the most incredible, wild, truly wilderness areas I've ever been to in my life.
That's unique too. If you think about it, trying to get somewhere where there haven't been a lot of people, and you are just out there. Perhaps you're not even the apex predator.
So let me put this into perspective for you. When you rent a car in Darwin, they make you sign a contract saying you won't bring it a certain radius outside the city because there are no tow truck drivers to get you.
So how far did you go outside the city?
10-hour drive. And then after that, it took us an hour once we got to the concession border. It was probably another hour and a half before we actually got into camp, which was a tent camp. I had a python try to come into my tent at night.
Really?
Yeah, and I already have nightmares and night terrors, so I was waking the whole camp up like, there's a snake. And, I had a baby crocodile one morning at my tent, and it was just, it goes back to I can't explain it. You just have to go.
Yeah.
And then I will say the other thing is Europe. People sleep on Europe.
Well, Europe sounds like it would be difficult and logistically challenging.
Nope.
As far not the travel part feels not as crazy as Australia, but like the guns and the trophies and all that stuff.
Look, I'm going to Scotland for the first time to hunt. I've been to Scotland a few times as a kid with my dad, but it'll be my first time hunting there. We're doing stags in the Highlands up at Kildare Estate. We're going to rent rifles just because we plan on doing other traveling within Europe for work at that time, and I don't want to have to mess with my guns.
Yeah.
Most estates you go to in Europe will have very high-quality rifles that you can rent. But should you want to bring your own rifle, it's totally doable. Totally doable. But, like, we plan on doing a roe deer at some point. And it's just a matter of having the right paperwork, man.
Now, you guys don't handle the gun stuff. I don't want to confuse people, right?
We don't handle the gun stuff.
Okay.
But I'm happy to make recommendations.
But
I'm happy to make recommendations. It always comes up in every phone call, and I'm happy to make recommendations, depending on where you're going.
Well, that's a good point.
Right?
I mean, if someone's hearing this and they're going to do a trip or they're thinking about it, and they could call you and set up what you guys do as a service, because you and Wyatt and your team you're not just like paper pushers necessarily. You actually go and do these things. You can say,
Correct.
Yeah, I know a guy
And
for
going back
taxidermy,
to
for guns,
and
or
going
whatever.
back to, we actually do these things, Ryan. One of the things I really pride myself on is Wyatt and I are very dedicated to conservation, and specifically hunting as a conservation model. And we've taken that a step further and essentially put money where our mouth is. A portion of every single invoice you spend with our company goes to the Blood Origins projects, which go to various conservation projects all over the world. I don't know if you know Robbie from Blood Origins, fantastic podcast.
There you go. You guys go check it out.
And he does a ton of great conservation work. And then we also donate a portion of each invoice to the Cabela Family Foundation.
Oh, really?
So Dan Cabela, who, had Cabela's, he's the one who helped reintroduce lions, like in Mozambique, and he's reintroducing cheetahs, and that family does so much for conservation. And I really admire it because, he could just sit back and
just chill.
Yeah, just chill. Like most people in his position.
He's got a few dollars. He can fight the case. Yeah.
He can fight the case. But, he really full time. And I have a good friend on his team, Adam. They fight tooth and nail to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And to really, there's pro hunters, there's anti-hunters, and there's non-hunters, right? And at the end of the day, what the Cabela Family Foundation and Blood Origins are really good at doing is getting eyes on hunting as a conservation model from non-hunters.
Yeah,
so that if something goes up to vote, right?
Yeah,
so that if something goes up to vote, they remember in the back of their head, like, oh, I don't like hunting personally for myself. I don't enjoy it, but I can see where it makes a difference to communities all over the world. And just in addition to that, we're very involved with like Dallas Safari Club International, and CIC, which is a European-based conservation group. So all of that is to say we're not just some random importer that is looking at these animals like numbers on a board.
Right.
We really do this. We're very passionate about it, and we want, our goal at the end of the day is so that our grandkids can enjoy this wildlife. And if we don't do something now to make positive changes for that and do it in a smart way, we're going to lose it.
Amen, brother.
We're going to lose it.
Amen. That's good. I neglected to get here, but how we're here, how do they find out more about what you guys do?
So you can look us up, Safari Specialty Importers. We have the Instagram page at Safari Specialty Importers.
Okay.
And you can check us out. Our website, safarispecialtyimporters.com, has a link where you can contact us. And
you guys can reach out to this man and talk about walnut and metric cartridges and, iron sights. And...
Hey, man, I will say 9.3x62 is one of the coolest cartridges ever. And 7x57.
If you don't know, look them up.
If you don't know, look them up.
The 6.5 bullet was been killing stuff long before the Creedmoor.
It has. 6.5 Swede's amazing.
I shouldn't even get you started on that.
We should do a separate podcast where I just talk about cool old guns that like 10 of your listeners are going to find fascinating and interesting.
Karamojo Bell, right?
Dude, Karamojo Bell was killing elephants with 7x57.
Yeah.
Or he called it 275 Rigby. That's the posh name for it. But
it's a Rigby.
Yeah. And look, Rigby's a cool company, man. They're bringing it back.
For another day. Yes, sir. We're going to get into
We'll get into it on another day.
The fancy guns.
Yeah, the fancy guns. The fancy guns. But
all right, good, man. Well, thanks
Ryan,
for being on
it's
this.
always fun.
It was fun.
Thank you.
You guys, thanks for listening. Go check them out. Safari Specialty Importers.
Yep.
Very cool. He may even talk me to going on one of these things.
I mean, look, man, you're fueling conservation through logistics.
There you go.
It's awesome.
All right, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on Gun Talk Nation.